Yeah, so tell me more about the playing. Now, we know that in America it was a big thing that President Obama actually said it's okay for kids to go to school by themselves because otherwise parents would be fined for neglect if they let their kids, if they don't drop them off in front of the school gate. Things work a bit differently there in the Netherlands. Tell us about.
Yeah, my children get up and make their lunch, pack their bags and cycle off to school on their own, and they have been doing for a couple of years. From about the age of 8. Actually, the book describes my process of training my daughter to cycle independently. So she isn't just thrown out, go out and do it,
No.
but the parents supervise the process of teaching them traffic safety and cycling proficiency,
Yeah.
so that then they can go off on their own.
So you're not being negligent or careless.
No.
You're preparing them
You're
well.
preparing them first and then letting them
Yeah.
do it on their own.
But
Yes.
that involves quite a bit of trust.
It does, yeah, and trust is one of the major things that Dutch parents manage to cling on to, is trusting their children to be responsible, trusting them to discuss things such as bedtime, or the rules are made in collaboration with the children. So they're not just imposed on them, the children also have a say in what should be reasonable.
And so they do have a voice,
They absolutely have a voice.
but
yeah.
with respect. Sure.
Yes, and there are rules, so it's not like there's no rules,
Yeah.
but you set them together.
You also wrote about boundaries. It's important for them to feel safe
Yes.
within boundaries.
Yes.
But they help, obviously, to set those boundaries, and they can say where they feel comfortable or not.
And then I find with mine at least they see the point of what I'm saying, why they shouldn't spend the whole time playing computer games, or why they shouldn't stay out too late. I mean, children are, children have their own minds. They should be allowed to think and use them.
Sure. But ultimately, if there's something that would not be advisable, but they're not old enough to see that, do you have a veto voice? Can you say?
Yeah, I think you do. Some things, yeah. I haven't got to that point yet. Mine are 10 and 12, and my son is definitely, he's in his adolescence, he's growing and changing every day, but he's still actually rather sensible.
Now, all the teens that you've seen, or most of them, and you write about that as well, they're respectful.
Yeah.
They're confident, but they're respectful.
Because they don't have to rebel, they don't see adults as the other, they don't see them as kind of bad people who are imposing all kinds of rules and restrictions on them. And that makes them, that just changes the whole relationship.
I bet it does. And with 3-year-olds throwing tantrums?
Yeah, that's seen as a normal developmental stage. So if your child is throwing a tantrum lying across the middle of the street, then passers-by won't tut or frown or criticise you. They'll just say, oh, never mind, it will pass, you'll get through it, and just leave them be, or get them to safety and leave them be.
So that it's also a community, no? It takes
it takes
a
more
village
than,
to raise a child, and you also write about that. So a mum would feel supported if a child was having a moment in a shop.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't feel judged.
She
and
wouldn't feel
my
judged.
Word, yeah, everyone's
No.
thinking I'm the worst mother in the world.
No, it's seen as just normal that your child would act up at that age. They grow through it, as we all know.
Well, that brings it back to the anxiety levels of parents in the UK and the US and in South Africa about not being perfect enough, not being good enough, not spending enough time, not doing the best they can for their children. And it seems that anxiety levels are completely reduced in the Netherlands.
It's not that Dutch parents aren't anxious, but it's that they rein in their anxiety because they know it's better for their children if they give them the space to grow and have certain freedoms through which they learn. That it's better for them than if they prevented them and protected them from any kind of risk. So rather than not letting them cycle, teach them to cycle safely. Rather than not letting them near water, teach them to swim. It's that kind of approach, putting things into perspective.
Right. And then with the levels of crime in the Netherlands not being quite what it is here, but you still live in Amsterdam. It is a city.
Yeah, it's the capital of the Netherlands.
Exactly.
It's a busy city. It's small, but it's busy, and there is crime. It's not that it's a kind of utopia or something.
But you're comfortable that your children will handle themselves.
Yeah, they're also taught awareness at school. So, for example, in terms of sexual abuse, for example, they're taught at a very young age to set their own boundaries for physical contact and to say, no, I don't want that, don't touch me, don't hold my hand, even if it's a school friend. And because they're treated as equal individuals, they're more likely to stand up for themselves in a difficult situation, I think.
So they're not as
vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerable and maybe willing to please.
They're not willing
parents.
to please, no, not willing to please adults.
Wonderful.